Morning, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. Ready to get things started today by looking with me at the 8th chapter of the book of Proverbs. And we will be starting in the 22nd verse, going to the end of the chapter. And so, got a lot to get done this morning, and so we're going to get right to it. We're going to look at a passage today that I may be completely out in left field in how I'm going to describe the contents of this chapter, but it's how it strikes me the message that is here. We started Saturday looking at this chapter and described it as wisdom, giving her qualifications, giving her resume. If this was a resume, this would be the section where she gave her experience, her previous work experience, I guess you'd say. And she does that by going all the way back to creation. And says in verse 22, the Lord possessed me in the beginning of his ways before his works of old. And there's two opinions here, and I think one of them, to me, is the obvious correct answer of exactly what it means when it says that the Lord possessed me, possessed wisdom. And some believe that it teaches that God created wisdom, while others say God, I don't know, I guess you say God had wisdom. And it's kind of splitting hairs a little bit, but I think it's very simple that God possessed wisdom. He had wisdom even before he started in creation. He's always been God. He never changes. And so whatever he had at creation, he had always had. And so he had wisdom and utilized that wisdom as he created this our earth and all the things around us. That God is wisdom, that he's always had wisdom. I think of God in wisdom the same way I think of God in love, and I've used this made this statement before. I don't know who said this originally, but it's not God. God doesn't have love. God is love. Love comes from God. The moment God stopped loving, he would stop being God. Same thing with wisdom. I think the moment God stopped being wise, he'd stop being God. Wisdom, God is wisdom. Wisdom flows from God. And so that distinction leads us then into verse 24. It says, when there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills I was brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth. When he established the clouds above. When he strengthened the fountains of the deep. When he gave to the sea his decree, that the waters should not pass his commandment. When he appointed the foundations of the earth. That's pretty straightforward and clear. When God was creating this earth, before he created this earth, he already had wisdom, and then he utilized that wisdom in his creation. When all these things were being done, the depths, the waters, the mountains, all those things, they were all created with the wisdom of God. He already had that wisdom. And here's where maybe for some people, some scholars, some authors who write about Proverbs, maybe I'm going off into an area that would be unacceptable to them. But here's the thought that struck me. God with his great creation of earth, of man, of all the great things that creation involves, he was utilizing his wisdom. And so we talk about wanting to be like God. We talk, I think that's again, somebody's made a bunch of money off the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets. If we want to be like God, the greatest tool we have then is to use the wisdom of God. We take His Word and we apply it to our life. We take the counsel, the wisdom of the Word of God, and we utilize that in our life, just as God created this world in wisdom. And some may say, well, what do you mean, God? Look at the shape of this world. Yeah, but you got to remember, this is the world after the fall of man, after sin invaded. In its perfect state that God created, it was created with His wisdom brought to bear in that creation. And so if we want to be like God, we're not like God using the world's wisdom or any other system, but when we use His wisdom, when we govern our life according to the guidance of His Word, the leadership of His Spirit. And again, as He's told His young son in these first 8 chapters, that is a decision we make. That is a choice we make. We choose how we're going to govern our life, how we're going to guide our life, how we're going to make our decisions. We make our decisions in a way that would be a world way, or do we make our decisions in a way that points towards God and towards His wisdom? And I think that's really, I mentioned a while ago, those bracelets and jewelry. What would Jesus do? That's really what we're boiling down to here with the wisdom of God. Is it's learning and governing our life the way God would have us to. And that's a real challenge in our world today. When you try to live that way, you'll be rejected, you'll be ridiculed, you'll be laughed at by your friends and even family. But we're never, is what spoke to me as I read that. We're never more like God than when we govern our life by His wisdom. You think about that today. And let's govern our life, live our life according to the wisdom that God gives us in His Word. Have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow.